Hi, it's Choury at Orange County Hypnosis Center, and we're exploring trauma. In the first video, I talked about the 4 different types of traumas that we're always experiencing in one way or another. If anybody has had trauma, it's been one of these 4. It's emotional, could be physical, could be cellular, could even be spiritual. When I talk about spiritual trauma, I'm talking about our belief system. It doesn't have to necessarily be religious. Today, we're expanding a little bit more on the emotional trauma and why I always tell people that emotions aren't always logical. In fact, most of the time, they're not logical, especially negative emotions. They can surface at any given point in time and can be an overt reaction to a situation that might appear to be relatively benign. Now, why does that happen? The simple explanation is this. Usually when we experience some form of trauma, and it has to do with emotion, what happens is the situation, let's say the nature of the trauma, the experience that we had at that time when we developed this negative emotion, is something that's stored on a subconscious level. Now, the experience itself isn't something that's always available to our conscious mind. So in other words, we could have a negative experience, let's say that happened at 5 or 6 years old, and it could have been fairly traumatic. Now, the negative emotion that's accompanying that, let's say that situation, whatever it happened to be, this traumatic situation that happened at 5 or 6 years old, what happens is the subconscious mind stores the memory of the actual incident. But what comes forward is the negative emotion, not the nature of what created that negative emotion. So again, what happens is in a given set of circumstances in the present moment, we might have a similar situation that might have to do with, let's say, somebody being unfair to us in one way or another that is stimulating a huge unfair thing that happened to us when we were maybe 5 or 6 years old. And all of a sudden, that negative emotion is coming all the way from 5-year-old version of you to the present version of you, and that could be, a lengthy period of time, might be 30 years into the future when the negative emotion shows up. But that negative emotion is overt, and it causes the person who's having the emotion to almost act out from the age at which the negative emotion actually occurred. So sometimes you would actually see people experiencing, let's say, acting like a child in a given situation. And many times people will say things like, well, you're acting like a 5-year-old child regarding this particular situation. And they are. They are, in fact, acting like a 5-year-old child. Why? Because the negative emotion was created at the time the person was 5 years old. So they're reacting the same way they would when they were 5 years old. This is, again, something to be explored on a deeper level, and we're going to pursue it a little bit more in the next video. So for now, just know and understand that when I say negative emotions are more often than not, they're irrational. Our conscious mind is very rational, and it wants to make sense out of all of the experiences that we're having, including negative emotions. We're going to explore that a little bit more next time. Until then, take care of yourself, be well, and we'll talk then. Bye-bye.